So when I was 7, my parents got divorced, and I remember it. I remember the moment that they told us they were getting divorced, and it was a shock for sure. And back in 1990, when I was 7, not a lot of people that I knew had divorced parents, so it was definitely difficult, and it was a tough journey for me. But as far as divorces go, I would say my parents did a really good job at keeping my brother and I together. We went back and forth between their 2 houses, and it wasn't too, I would say, traumatic at that point when I was 7. But then when I turned 10, I was on vacation, and a family member ended up, I don't even know why or how, still to this day, ended up telling me some really detailed things about my parents' divorce, and told me specifically some things my mom had done to cause the divorce. And as an adult now, I know that it takes 2. I've been married for almost 16 years, and it's definitely a partnership, and it takes 2 to make it work. But at that point, I was only given this information as a 10-year-old that really made me angry at my mom. It made me put all the blame on her. And at 10 years old, I didn't even understand some of the words that were being told to me. And I didn't understand why my mom had done what she'd done and these things. And of course, this is from a third party telling me as a child, trying to understand this. And so I guess I never really had anyone to blame for my parents' divorce, because they didn't talk bad about one another actually through the whole thing. So now, as a 10-year-old, I had this secret, and I had someone to blame. And I kept the secret. I didn't tell anyone that I knew any of these things that had been told to me, and I just kept it in the dark, and it grew, and it festered, and it turned into bitterness and anger and resentment against my mom, and I pulled away from her. It affected how I related to her. So from 10 until I believe I was 16, I finally told my dad that I knew this, and he was just heartbroken that someone had told me that and this and that. And I think he ended up telling my mom, and ended up getting in counseling to talk through it, and started the road to forgiveness. So it was a process. It was, I forgive her completely. You know, I'd go to church and hear a message on forgiveness and be like, yes, I completely forgive her. I release her. And then a week later, you know, something would rise up, and I would wonder if I didn't truly forgive her. Like, why couldn't it go away? Why couldn't all the feelings of pain and of hurt and bitterness and resentment go away? And I was like, what is wrong with me?
It wasn't until I went through my separation and then divorce with Jessica's dad that I started going to intensive counseling and other types of therapy. All of that thrust me into trying to figure out what happened, what went wrong. I was a Christian and I'm divorced. And that may sound crazy, like, why don't you know why you got divorced? But I knew it was more than what was on the surface. So I grew up looking for approval because I was daddy's girl, but I wasn't mommy's girl, and I learned why. And that's because, and it took me years to get to the point to be able to say this without bursting into tears, but my dad used me as his spousal replacement emotionally, never physically, he never harmed me, but he replaced my mom with me. Now, he didn't know he was doing that. You know, my mom, they didn't understand that. Otherwise, they never would have done it. But what happened was, then I became the other woman to my mom. Because my mom treated me like the other woman, I grew up with, I'm not good enough or I'm too much. I never had, like, you're just okay the way you are. So I never knew who I was. I literally never knew who I was. And so as a result, that sent me searching for anybody that gave me approval, that sent me to getting into relationships that weren't wise or good. When Jessica was in her teenage years, it became more apparent to me that she was struggling with me. And so I did get her into a counseling session or two. And it was there that she revealed to me that she had found out things at 10 years old, which I never knew till then. I felt so bad that she carried that all that time in her heart. I was able to then ask for her forgiveness and certainly apologize to her for anything that I had done that hurt her. And then she got married, and so then it was wedding, and then by this time, then she has Reagan, and by this time Isaac is 4. So here I am with a 4-year-old, and she's got a brand new baby. So we never got to really process that all the way to the end. So it was more of I was just there for her. I tried to be. I knew she still felt something, but it just never was the right time to talk about it. I just kept being present. I just kept being there for her, no matter what she needed. I babysat as often as I could with having my own 4-year-old, and I just kept showing up.
Started out having 2 boys. I had Reagan and then Hudson. And I was really glad actually when I had Hudson, because I realized I didn't want a girl. And my answer, my superficial reason for not wanting a girl was because I'm not girly. But truth be told, I didn't want a girl because I didn't want to have a poor relationship with her. And that was a fear. It was definitely the enemy lying to me and telling me that I would not be a good mom to a girl. I think Hudson was 3. And we were good with 2 kids, we were done, and I was working as a medical transcriptionist at home, and I would get up at like 3 or 4 in the morning and type before my kids got up, and this name came across the screen of a patient, and I don't remember the exact name, but I know the name reminded me of a different name, which was Adeline. And I was like, that's a gorgeous name, I've never heard that name before. And then just a whisper in my head or my heart was, I heard Adeline Collette, and Collette is my grandma's name. And I just said, that is a gorgeous name, but I am not having any more kids, and I'm definitely not having a girl. And so I emailed it to myself thinking, I'll give that name to someone else. Maybe one of my nieces could be named that or something. And it was not long after that that I had a stirring in my heart to have another child. And I talked to Matt, and he was like, no way are we having another child? And then he eventually came around, and I just knew that it was gonna be a girl, and her name was gonna be Adeline. So in 2011, I had Adeline Collette Stallbaum, and the instant she arrived, she was just like the completion to our family. If anyone has met Adeline, you know that she is full of life and spunk and heart, and she's the most encouraging little thing that I've ever seen in my life. And she really just completed our family. And the coolest thing is not only my little nuclear family, the 5 of us now, but when I saw my mom hold my daughter, and I saw Adeline look up at my mom, I saw this connection pass between them, just total love. God whispered to my heart, that the way that Adeline was looking at my mom was the way that Jesus looks at her. No baggage, no bitterness, no hurt, no past. And it was the moment that it just all broke and it all fell off. And I was able to finally look at my mom like that. Like my mom is a redeemed creation. She is the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. And for me to hold on to anything against her is completely wrong and not okay.
I think it's Proverbs 16:7 that says that a man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. Now, I'm not saying that everything I did or the bad choices I made were him directing my steps, but he certainly directed me out of those steps and then made them new. He redeemed them. He covered me in his blood, and I am free. I am so blessed and so thankful and so grateful that I have this new relationship with my daughter because of forgiveness, because God has worked in her heart.
I realized that the enemy wanted to keep that curse going. He wanted my mom to not have a good relationship with my grandma, and me and her to not have a good relationship, and then me with Adeline. If I hadn't had that revelation, I could have easily gone into I'm not a good girl mom and I shouldn't have a daughter, and all those lies that the enemy wanted to steal, kill, and destroy our legacy. And what I feel like we've done now, especially over the past 7 years, actually Adeline's gonna be 8 next month, so almost 8 years, we have come together, we're walking in forgiveness, we do ministry together now, and I just know the enemy wanted to steal that from us, but every time that we come together in ministry and partnership, we're kicking the enemy in the teeth.
I'm so grateful that I took the steps to allow the Holy Spirit to do His surgery in my heart, because I don't care what I had to go through to get here. I would do it all again if it got me to this point with my baby girl and my grandchild. And I am so blessed that God has allowed me to be the kind of grandma that maybe my mom would have wanted to be. She was a good grandma, but I'm just so blessed that He has given me even more.
So I believe it was August 25th, Pastor Mark Cook preached a message about the glory of God is to be revealed in our story. I wrote in my iPhone notes, maybe I'm supposed to share my story about my mom one day. And that was really the first time that I ever thought that thought. But then it was immediately followed by, this is not just my story to tell. This involves my mom, it involves my dad, my stepdad, my brothers. So I wrote in my notes, I said, have mom come to me if this needs to happen. And I think it was September 10th, just a few days later, she texted me. She'd been listening to me and Paige on Morning Breath, our radio show, and Paige was talking about purity. She texted me and she said, you did such a good job on Morning Breath, and I loved what Paige said about purity, and it reminded me that my name, my mom's name, Kathleen, means pure one.
It was like I heard him say, what does your name mean? Well, Kathleen, it means pure one. And I said, even after everything I just said and all these revelations about His righteousness, I still said, but wait a minute, I've been anything but pure. And he said, remember, I knew you before the world was formed, and I named you Pure One because I knew who you really are. That's who you are. That's who you are.
And when I got that text, I just knew. I just knew that was the thing. This was my mom coming to me. And I just sat in a corner and I texted her just the longest probably text ever that anyone has ever sent. And I said, wow, thank you so much for sharing that with me. I know that God sees you as pure one, and I'm so glad that He's giving you this revelation. And so, hey, what do you think about possibly sharing our story together? And we went back and forth a lot. And the thing that really, really stuck out to me that she said was, although it's hard to rehash that and to think that, and I think she said resurrect that from the graveyard of her past, she said it would be worth it if one person was able to find freedom through our story. And I'm like, wow, it's true. So true.
I used to say, oh, I'm on plan D or E or F, and now I know there's one plan. It's God's plan. It's plan A, and I've never gotten off plan A. I may have taken detours, but He's always gotten me back on His path.
This Flourish theme this year is refined, and I was really excited when we first picked the theme because I liked the word. I thought it sounded so refined and wonderful. But the truth of the matter is, refining is a process, just like forgiveness is a process. Now on the other side, I get to see my mom play with my daughter, and my sons, they love her. They call her Ma. She and my kids have such a special relationship, especially she and Adeline are like, they're actually almost the same person. They're so funny when they're together. They have so much fun. They watch Hallmark movies together, and they eat popcorn, and they drink milk together, and Adeline told me it's their tradition. And it's a gift to be able to have gone through the process and to be on the other side refined. This picture of my mom and Adeline sitting on their bed, on my mom's bed, eating popcorn and drinking milk and watching Hallmark is like the picture of refinement in my mind. And it's just the best.